they're cutting down the
Yeah.
to put the beans on.
All right, everybody. We haven't had people at a city council meeting in so long, I'm confused, and I don't know how to run it anymore, so we will do the best that we can. Welcome, everybody, to the April 22nd meeting, the Wenatchee City Council. They're our first meeting with the public in the room since a year ago last March, so excited to have an audience tonight. As always, we start with a pledge to our flag. So Councilmember Bailey, would you lead us?
I would, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Bailey.
You're welcome.
Our first item on the agenda tonight, roll call. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 council members here tonight. So nice to have everybody in attendance.
Need a pen?
Thank you for Jose for keeping me in my pen
Of course.
collection. Our first item tonight would be the consent items, which would be to approve this evening's agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from our previous meetings. An ordinance relating to a franchise with local tel that just had a typo in it. And to authorize the mayor to sign Amendment 1 regarding an extension for the Saddle Rock ecology work.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve agenda vouchers and minutes from previous meetings. Motion to adopt ordinance number 2021-16, amending ordinance number 2021-07, granting a franchise to Locatel Communications for the purpose of authorizing the use of the city right-of-way for cable service. Motion to authorize the mayor to sign Amendment 1 to agreement number TCPRA-1921-Wenatchee-00073 between the city of Wenatchee and the state of Washington Department of Ecology for the Gold Knob Prospect Site, also known as Saddle Rock Park.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Bailey to approve this evening's agenda vouchers and the minutes from the previous meetings. To adopt ordinance 2021-16, amending ordinance 2021-07, granting a franchise to Locatel Communications for the purpose of authorizing the use of the city right-of-way for cable service. And a motion to authorize the mayor to sign Amendment 1 to the agreement number TCPRA-1921 Wenatchee-00073 between the city of Wenatchee and the state of Washington Department of Ecology for the Gold Knob Prospect Site, also known as Saddle Rock Park. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have one proclamation tonight that is regarding Poppy Days. It's nice to see some Poppy Days folks here. So Councilmember Kulas, would you read that into the record, and then we'll invite our friends to come up.
I would be honored, Mayor. Turn off the watch. Proclamation of the City of Wenatchee, whereas the American Legion each year sponsors throughout the state of Washington a campaign for the distribution of crepe paper poppies, and whereas all proceeds from the distribution will be used for the benefit of the men and women now serving in all armed forces, needy war veterans, the orphans and widows and widowers of deceased veterans, and whereas this charitable drive will enable all citizens to show their gratitude to servicemen and women and have a part in contributing to the assistance rendered to needy and disabled war veterans and their families. Now, therefore, I, Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor of the City of Wenatchee, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Poppy Days in the City of Wenatchee, and I urge all citizens to support this worthy cause by wearing the poppy during this period. In witness whereof, I hereby set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Wenatchee to be affixed on this 22nd day of April, 2021. Frank J. Kuntz, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Kulas. So who's here tonight representing the Poppy Days? Come on up.
Here.
I'll hold this over here. You gonna read something? Here, sit down. Tell us your name. Tell us what you got for us.
My name is Ellie Rubio. and I am in 4th grade. I am 9, and I am the American Legion Auxiliary Poppy Princess. And I would like to share a poem with you today. It's called In Floundered Fields by John McCrae. In floundered fields, the poppies blow between the crosses row on row. That mark our place in the sky, the larks still bravely singing. Fly the stars heard the admit guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow. Loved and were loved, and now we lie in floundered fields. Take up our quarrel with foe. To you from falling hands we throw the torch. Ye are so hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep through poppies who grow in floundered fields.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, we've got some poppies in here, right? And if I give a little donation, can I get a poppy? And if you went around to all of these nice people up there, they might have something for you too. So did I dump this in here?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna grab one of these. Thank you. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much.
I'm not gonna make this work here.
You read that poem very nicely.
How are you doing? Nice job. Thank you.
Hey, let me have that.
Okay. There it is. I don't know how to do this.
So, I do.
There we go.
That was good. You're good, so. You're doing good.
Well, thank you very much for coming tonight and telling us about Poppy Days and reading that into the record for us. It's one of our favorite things every year, and it brings back some normalcy to what we've been going over through the last 14 months. So thank you for being here tonight, and look forward to your fundraising. And get those people in the back too, especially the city lawyer.
Very nice.
All right. While she's working the room, we're going to continue on with our business, if that's all right. So citizen comment. Are there any members of the audience that would wish to address the city council on something that's not on today's agenda? We'd ask you to come up and give you a few minutes. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Do you need your poem? Thanks for coming.
All right, seeing no citizen comments, we will drop into our regular item. We've got a couple of action items and a couple of public hearing items. So first action item is regarding an action related to COVID-19 and removing our emergency declaration at the city of Wenatchee. So Laura Merrill, I'll let you take that one.
Good evening, Council. Laura Merrill, Executive Services Director. The item before you is resolution number 2021-20. And in essence, it's ratifying the order to rescind the proclamation of emergency that we issued on March 18th. Basically what it does is, the last year we have, or the mayor has, done a couple of different actions, which we then ratify through the city council afterwards, and that allows us to be able to do things a little bit quicker during the emergency. The emergency is not over, but we think that at this point we have the tools that we need to be able to continue city services as normal or as expeditiously as possible, and that we no longer need that additional quicker authority. So that's what this does. It basically says that the proclamation piece, which grants the mayor the authority to address those COVID-19 issues in a time-sensitive manner, is expired as of March 18th. So that's what the resolution is about, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Yeah, we are about as normal as we can be, other than wearing masks. We're open for business. Both shops are open for business. So other than wearing masks and trying to stay socially distanced and doing the things that, folks can get vaccinated on city time if they need to and all that stuff. So I think we've done all we can, and I think we're in phase 3. I'm assuming we're going to stay here for a while, but it sort of feels like the things that would require the mayor to make emergency decisions are behind us. So with that, we would entertain a motion if we had one.
Well, Your Honor, I would make a motion to adopt resolution number 2021-20 to ratify an action related to COVID-19 presented by our Executive Services Director, Laura Romero.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Bailey, a second by Councilmember Harold to adopt Resolution 21-20 to ratify the order of the mayor rescinding the proclamation of emergency issued on March 18, 2020, and rescinding subsequent orders and resolutions pursuant thereto. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We have a 10% annexation petition from JAB Investors. Matt Parsons, nice to see you again.
See you too.
Good to see you as well.
Oh, hi, Glenn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Matt Parsons, Senior Planner. Like I said, I'm here to present the JAB Investors LLC annexation 10% petition. We received it on March 17th, 2021. There's a company called under that name, which was the primary applicant. And signatures on that petition equaled 41% of the assessed value, which exceeded the 10% threshold that's required. And we did have a small effort to see if we could expand the boundary. So we sent out some letters to folks in and out of the boundary out to about Easy Street to just see if anybody else was interested. I did get some inquiries. We were only able to add one parcel that was adjacent that wouldn't decrease the value. Some others, they're not adjacent, taken some other parcels and it would decrease the value. And so it's only one added, and I'll show you that in a second. Based on our estimates of the known supporters and my estimate of the right-of-way value, we're thinking it's about 67%. It'll be something different because it's all an estimate of right-of-way value, but that's kind of enough. It's a bit of a buffer. We want to have some buffer as we go forward with something like this. So the one parcel that changed from the 10%, it was in the 10% petition versus what's being brought forward by staff is this one parcel on the screen, the southeast corner of West Peter and School Street. The gentleman reached out and said he was interested, and of course he was adjacent to the boundary. Another change I want to point out, which is on the map that you handed out to everybody, is a change from the packet. And basically what we're trying to do here is take in, of course, the locally maintained right-of-way, but leaving out the state maintained. And this is a depiction of the right-of-way line that delineates the state versus local maintenance responsibilities on the Washington State DOT right-of-way plan. And so in the packet, the map that you had in the packet was kind of just a straight line running parallel with US 2. This is the actual kind of depiction of how that maintenance responsibility is delineated. And so I wanted to have that. You'll be setting the boundary for this, and so I wanted you to see that. What I'm told by Public Works is that whether we take in US Highway 2 or not, it doesn't change the maintenance responsibility that they would maintain that regardless. And so the boundary that's in here, I believe that we're proposing that the city would be taking on all the necessary maintenance responsibilities on Melody Lane, School Street, and All Vista Place. And the right-of-way line that it follows, that's the same document and line and delineation that was used for Old Station annexation and the Gray City Church annexation. So just kind of being consistent that way. On the topic of maintenance responsibilities, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase the report that I got from Public Works. Basically, of course, we're taking in School Street, Melody Lane, and All Vista Place. They don't have sidewalks or stormwater facilities, so that is a concern to be aware of. But also, School Street is a collector, and so that it's eligible for grants. So that's kind of just my paraphrase from Public Works. I just wanted to pass on.
But as Washington Sunny Slope LLC develops, there'll be sidewalks on front of both of those properties at
Right.
some point. The school is responsible. I think the school actually has, do they have sidewalks in front of
Oh, that
on
could
School
be.
Street?
That could be.
Yeah, so that really limits the amount that's,
Sure.
if Clancy Farms develops, they would be required to do that as well.
Yes.
So it does, not as daunting as it might seem.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. Yeah. So the thing that's before you tonight, there's 3 things set out in the RCW about what needs to happen at this meeting. You're deciding if this goes forward. You accept, reject, or geographically modify the proposed boundary. Of course, I gave you the staff proposed boundary I recommend. You set the zoning. This is sort of just a procedural thing. We're not revisiting anything. You've already set it in the comprehensive plan and the zoning map, but that's one of the things that's in the motion that you adopt. And then also you address whether that area will assume the existing indebtedness. And in most cases, the city has had newly annexed areas assume existing indebtedness of the city. I'll have the motion on the next screen. I just wanted to real quick kind of give you the next steps in the process. We're already working on legal description, so we should have the petition out soon. And when it's ready, it'll be handed over to gathering of signatures. Once staff gets it back, it'll get transferred over to the assessor's office for determination of sufficiency, determine that the signatures were the right signatures and that they represent over 60% of the assessed value in the area. Once we get that back from the assessor's office, we'll come back to you with a resolution to set a public hearing. Once that's been adopted, we notify the public, and then, of course, the public hearing is held, and an ordinance would be brought to you for adoption. And then usually the effective date is set 60 days after the publication of the ordinance and the notification to agencies and utility providers. So several months out still before it be in effect, but that's what's happening after this. So this motion is the same that's in the agenda report, and staff recommends passing this motion. Available for any questions if you have them.
Yeah, any questions for Matt? I know we talked about it at both Finance Committee and the Public Works Committee. Both reviewed this earlier this week. So this is not news to them in terms of the boundary and the process.
Matt, just one really quick thing, just for clarification. I think I'm reading this right, but I want to make sure. Where on the far left-hand side where the boundary is going up along those basically like subdivision lots there. But on the corner, Sun Valley Drive and whatever that road is there, Easy Street, Clancy Farms LLC, where the red dotted line goes through there is a boundary line there in that piece of property, correct? You're not cutting a piece of property in half.
Correct, yeah. We're not, there aren't any
annexation
private
line.
properties that we're cutting in half.
Okay,
in
because I
this.
see several places there where, and
Sure.
I think I'm seeing a dark line underneath, but I want to make sure that,
Yeah.
that we're not cutting somebody's property. in half.
Yeah. The only place where it would look like it is right in this circle. And that's just the way the parcel's drawn. It looks like we're cutting the corner. I've checked the legal description. And that this portion, I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen or not, but right where Easy or Melody Lane and School Street turn a corner, it has the appearance that it cuts it. You can't really see it in this, but they match there. So that's not a concern. So yeah, we're not cutting any properties in half. It follows parcel lines.
Okay, good.
The whole way. Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
All right, any questions for Matt or Glenn? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I would make a motion that the council accept the geographic modification to the proposed annexation boundary, resolution that adopts the proposed zoning regulation, and that assume all or any portion of existing city indebtedness by the annexation areas.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Esparza to accept the geographically modified of the proposed annexation boundary, to adopt the proposed zoning regulations, and to assume all or any portion of the existing city indebtedness by the annexation area. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Look forward to getting the 60% in, hopefully in the next couple of months.
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a quick comment. It just seems that, in these annexations, and I understand the reason why we do what we do, it looks like a congressional gerrymandering district in Mississippi or someplace. Yeah.
Looks like a jigsaw
Or
puzzle.
or Washington State Legislative District.
Yeah, yeah.
But, hopefully we can get some of that filled in.
We'll be able to get it filled in, and it's, again, our annexation laws in this state are not very conducive to providing good government to those people that want it. It just isn't very good that way. But I'm not fixing that anytime soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. All right, so we have two public hearing items tonight. The first is regarding a transaction with the North Central Washington Libraries, which I think is what they call themselves out now, or the Library District, in the city of Wenatchee regarding a currently jointly owned facility. And the other is regarding our Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Plan Update. So for public hearings, we'll first hear from staff, and then we'll turn it over to the council for any questions they have of staff, and then ultimately back over to the council for any, after hearing from the public, any action the council may be willing to take. So first item regarding the North Central Washington Library District building is Laura Merrill. Laura, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So there's a couple of actions here pertaining to the Wenatchee Public Library building, which is owned by both the City of Wenatchee and the North Central Washington Libraries District. So as the mayor mentioned, staff is recommending a public hearing, and then we also have the resolution and purchase and sale agreement that to support that. So the resolution would declare the property surplus, which is required of us as a public entity, and then authorize the transfer of that property to the North Central Washington Libraries. The purchase and sale agreement is the terms of that transfer. And so in essence, the city has certain obligations for the building itself through a shared building use and maintenance agreement. A piece of that was taking part in part of the renovation that the library did. And after, much discussion, the library and the district and the city came to a conclusion that because of the amount of investment that was done to the building, it would be conducive for the library to continue to own that building. And so we are in essence transferring our shared interest in that building to the district, which would then cover our obligation for the renovation costs, as well as terminate that shared building use and maintenance agreement, which means that the city would no longer have any maintenance or financial obligations for the next 30 years. After that 30 years, then that's that's something else that we'll figure out at that point. But before those 30 years, if the library district sells it, 25% of those proceeds would go into a new building. So that in essence would guarantee that if for some reason the district were to sell the building, there would still be kind of a pot of money that would then be able to be used for a new building within the city limits. And we specified, that it would have to be for a capital improvement. So it couldn't go to administration or something different. It has to go to a building. So that's the purchase and sale agreement. And other than that, I'll unless there's any other questions.
I had a question. I in my reading, I couldn't find it. Do we have the first right of refusal if they do sell it?
No.
Now, obviously, if they're going to sell it, it's going to be for a reason, probably to Chelan County, because they're the ones that are going to want it for purposes of rebuilding a new library at some other sort of facility or some other spot in our town. So whether or not we would be interested in repurchasing it or getting back in the middle of it, back when we did the dance a year and a half or 2 years ago, when they were down in the old Seafirst Bank building, we did make a run at, maybe the Seafirst Bank building is the right spot for it. And the county was very interested in purchasing the older building. library's made it clear to me with a $4.5 million investment, they're not going anywhere, and they're not going anywhere. And, you know, from city staff's perspective, especially Aaron Kelly and Brad Posenjack, you know, trying to keep track of this separate maintenance agreement because we're in for half the capital, but they have to pay us rent for half of that, and then the maintenance, and it's back and forth, and Aaron's thrilled to not have to have our people go look when something breaks and involved in it, and Brad is tired of, he thinks this is probably the best financial thing we've done since he's been here. So, and again, they've got all that money sitting into that building, and it makes sense for them to own it. It's against what they're doing in all of the cities where they choose not to own the buildings. So I sort of felt like this was the right end game for this proposal. You know, 30 years from now, and it's our job to look 30 years down the road. And my view of the world is there's still going to be a library sitting in that building 30 years from now.
But I guess, and that kind of is part of my question, is why the maintenance agreement with the district for at least 30 years. I mean, that makes it sound like after 30 years, we're going to get into some kind of a maintenance agreement with them again.
We won't own the building. So the only issue gets to if they sell the building in 30 years, what do they have to do with the money?
Right, and I agree with that, that they have to put it into a new library, but the maintenance agreement just, that was worded odd.
Yeah, so it's gone. Maintenance agreement is gone, and in 30 years.
Indefinitely.
Yeah, it's, will have to be a different group of council and mayors to decide whether or not they want to take on maintenance of somebody else's building. So that would have to be part of another agreement, I suppose, at that point. So I anticipate we are out of the maintenance business for that building for as long as it's going to be around.
It just read odd.
Yeah, which our staff is very excited about. All right. Any other questions for Laura? If not, I'll turn it to any member of the audience that would wish to address the council on this public hearing item regarding the sale of the building to North Central Washington Libraries. Seeing no one from the audience, I'll turn it over to the council for any action they may be willing to take. So it's a bit of a complicated motion, but it's going to require all three of those. I think we can just do it as one.
You want it done in one?
Yeah. Yep.
Your Honor, I make a motion that the city council conduct a public hearing, approve resolution number 2021-21 declaring certain real property surplus to the needs of the city of Wenatchee, and authorize the transfer of said real property to North Central Washington Libraries, and 3, authorize the mayor to sign the purchase and sale agreement for 310 Douglas Street, Wenatchee, Washington.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Bailey, to approve resolution number 2021-21, declaring certain real property surplus to the needs of the city of Wenatchee, and authorize the transfer of said real property to North Central Washington Libraries, and authorize the mayor to sign a purchase and sale agreement for 310 Douglas Street, Wenatchee, Washington. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Laura. And our second public hearing is regarding our consolidated plan update. So Brooklyn Holton is here to help us conduct the public hearing. So Brooklyn, I'll let you take it over from here.
I need a minute to get the PowerPoint down. So, I don't know. Oh, are we fighting for the mouse right now? Sorry. Not helping. And then this is just an addition, one of the projects I'll be talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is something from the Parks and
Thank you.
Department. Patreon more about that project. The CDBG funding is just a portion of the $1 budget, but wanted to just give you a comprehensive view of that project. Okay. This is a lot, and if any of you read the whole plan, I feel like I should give you a gift card or something.
Okay.
And say thank you. So hi, Brooklyn Holton, Community Development Department. So this PowerPoint is a condensed PowerPoint covering all three plans: the consolidated plan, the assessment of fair housing, and the 2020 annual action plan. We're going to start with the assessment of fair housing, which is a regional plan. It looks at the access to opportunity in our region in the Chelan-Douglas County area and barriers to fair housing. And it's a partnership with Wenatchee, East Wenatchee, and the Housing Authority. So all three entities will be adopting this same plan on the same goals and strategies identified in it. And it helps to inform the consolidated plan, which is more specific to Wenatchee. So aspects of the plan, the biggest part of it is the demographic summary. That's kind of the meat of the plan. It also looks at general issues related to segregation within our community, concentrated areas of poverty that also cross over with different race and ethnicities. And then again, access to opportunity and disproportionate housing needs across all incomes. And then publicly supported housing, which is specific to our housing authority, disability and access analysis, which is for all income levels, but individuals that have a diagnosed disability, and then how we are able to enforce, do outreach around, and analyze the effectiveness of our fair housing enforcement. The three goals of this plan include supporting the implementation of housing policies. So Wenatchee and East Wenatchee have done a comprehensive job updating our codes, and smaller jurisdictions within the region have not had the opportunity to do substantially the same kind of thing. So wanting to support that will also implement the policies that exist to increase housing units and options across income levels. Increase access to housing services and supportive housing options for vulnerable populations. The overarching of that is really just to support our housing and homeless strategic plan. So that's kind of something that we can take and set an example on. So that's what goal number 2 mainly encompasses. And then provide education and support community efforts around fair housing. So something that we had in our last fair housing plan was to provide education, and that was really focused around housing services and the providers of those, and not specifically real estate, homeowners, professionals that work in the non-social service realm of housing, and so we expanded that to incorporate additional people. And then including also a bilingual education support. So we had some Spanish media individuals on our advisory committee, and they were a part of working to coordinate a really comprehensive effort for the region. And then, so the assessment for housing informs the consolidated plan. And the previous one is underneath neighborhood improvement. And when we look at the consolidated plan, the housing and infrastructure section is where the assessment of fair housing will be informing that. Any questions on that? I'm going to go into the next plan. If there's any. It's probably super clear.
How long have we been connected with this, with East Wenatchee and the Housing Authority?
This is the first time.
Okay.
So our previous consolidated plan started in 2013, went through 2019, and we did our own individually, and so did both of those entities. So this is our first regional plan that we've done.
I noticed we had some successes already, and everybody
Yeah.
else was blank, and it was like,
Yeah, we're still working on figuring out some language for the progress of our partners. Yeah. Okay, so the second plan is the consolidated plan, and this is specific to the city of Wenatchee, but it utilizes regional data, and it's really broad, so it sets goals on how we want to prioritize our funding focus over the next 5 years. It does not specifically identify projects and activities or specific funding allocations, so it is much broader. And you'll see with the intention of our goals, we want to be able to fit all of the projects that we think the community will benefit from over the next 5 years. So we've kept things really high level. A few updates in the plan specifically. Prior to this plan, we had a CDBG target area, and that is something that the city itself set. It's not a requirement by HUD. And so we're looking at doing just a citywide approach and just saying our CDBG program is for the city. And that way, any projects or activities that we want to do, we can still do them on an area basis, which the target area allowed. But we can also be more intentional around looking at what are maybe some pockets of our community that would be qualifying as low income, but might not have been in the target area previously, and so weren't as in our face, I guess, or knowing those needs weren't as abundant as that target area. So we're recommending that. In terms of resources, for the 2020 year, we're still under that $250,000 mark. The grant administration has a cap of 20%. This covers staff time, any planning, the time it takes to write these plans, things like that. And then public services, which has a 15% cap. Traditionally, we've focused on the Literacy Council, but it can really support any organization, usually social service, that has operations or staffing costs. And then the remaining amount from our 2020 year allocation is just under $155,000. And that would go towards the housing, infrastructure, and economic development projects that you guys might want to do. The 5-year estimate is just those values. If we got the same amount for the next 5 years, that's how much we would have over the entirety of the 5-year consolidated plan. The goals for the consolidated plan, and again, these were informed from the assessment of fair housing, include expand development of housing and public amenities, enhance economic development, and support public services. So the expand development of housing and public amenities really encompasses everything from our code enforcement department to sidewalks or parks. It allows us to look at also supporting affordable housing units or multifamily units that might want to have support in their sidewalks or also utility infrastructure. So the measures that we're looking at to see if we've moved the needle over the next 5 years under under development of housing and public amenities include availability of new, essentially new rehabilitated units to also low and moderate income households. Looking at the condition of our existing infrastructure and have we improved that? It's a measure we already do, so an easy one to track. And how much new construction have we done over the years? And then how much value have we brought in new or reconstructed public amenities, such as improving the park. The Lincoln Park project is one that you guys have in front of you, or doing things like updating the community center or facilities like that. Goal 2 and 3, enhance economic development, would be around providing support for small businesses. Micro enterprises are those with 5 or fewer employees. Small businesses would be 6 to about 50 is usually what smaller jurisdictions look at. And then workforce education, we have about 35% of individuals at an age able to work that aren't in our workforce, so being able to expand the access to employment for individuals in our community. And then support public services, what is the value that we're providing for public services, so supporting programs or organizations, that's kind of a high level, and the number of low and moderate income households that we support, so we can have a count of individual that we are able to support with either literacy training or employment or childcare, kind of a broad spectrum for public services. Okay, any questions on the consolidated plan? So the last one, the annual action plan. There's 5 annual action plans within our consolidated plan, so this is what you guys see every year before we start going on. And and it is specific to Wenatchee, so within the city of Wenatchee limits. It looks at 1-year goals that can support the implementation of your broad goals, and it does identify projects, activities, and funding. So I tried to fit all of it into one slide. And so the grant administration out of our 2020 value with that 20% cap is just under $50,000. To support goal 1, expand development of housing and public amenities, we have the City of Wenatchee Code Enforcement Department. This was actually pre-approved. You guys approved a pre-award cost because the 2020 plan is delayed due to COVID and other plans being delayed. We're able to approve a pre-award cost. So those are things that we haven't had to experience a delay in terms of staff salary. and then improvements to Lincoln Park at $150,000. So the details of that project are in that packet I gave to you guys. And one that has, we'd be starting that kind of conversation and looking at the needs that still fit underneath. I think on the second or third page, there's a list of needed resources for the park. So which ones are eligible for CDBG are still the ones that we're figuring out. I'm going to jump down to goal number 3. The Literacy Council, again, that was a pre-award cost. We didn't want to create a delay in something that we funded them for about 6 years now, and so we approved that pre-award cost at $30,000. Support for the city code, that voluntary compliance, that helps that when the city code officers go out, that if there's an individual or household that is unable to voluntarily comply due to finances, we're able to support them. And then the Emergency Food Assistance Program, we're actually in our last month of that. And we will be closing out that project. But it's one that if a household qualifies or has been affected by COVID and doesn't have access to a stable food option or can't access the grocery store, the Town Toyota Center and Serve Wenatchee Valley has helped support with providing food boxes. Under Goal 2, the stabilization grants for microenterprises is considered, it can be a form of public service. And so looking at the amount that's available in all of our COVID funding, which is close to $400,000, we are thinking of doing an RFP to combine all potential public service options and looking to see what agencies might be able to propose support for microenterprises or small businesses and also be a qualifying public service option. So rather than trying to figure out, exactly which ones and how much, being able to do an RFP with such a significant amount of funding can help us either pair with our homeless and housing projects or work with individuals that we haven't in the past since we've been so limited with that 15% cap and usually right around $35,000 each year. So that's all of it. It's a lot. Any questions on any of the plans or the 2020 annual action? And I will share too that we are really close to starting our 2021 annual action plan. Okay. And so there's a pretty good possibility that we might go through an amendment of this one or an option on looking at, when we know how much that funding is, how can we maybe bring it into so that some of the projects benefit from both funds.
Yeah, excited about Lincoln Park as we're trying to put that together, and that fits in that demographic. We're making those improvements. I think it's pretty important to that part. I know the emergency food assistance program through the Town Toyota Center has a number of families has really slowed in the last 6 weeks or so. So they understand that funding's going away. They're not sure what they're going to do to keep their doors open, but they realize that funding is going away and needs to be spent other places. So I think both of those are excited for the $150,000 for Lincoln Park.
Yeah.
Council members, questions for Brooklyn while you have her here? I know there's a lot in those consolidated plans.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep making changes to it during the year as you find out the funding amount and those
probably
things.
Not the consolidated plan, but the annual action plan is likely either changes to the 2020 or just letting that roll over and identifying them in the 2021 since it's only a couple months away. But the consolidated plan will probably stay as long as the overarching goals, as long as these are ones that you guys are okay with, we'll move forward in the consolidated plan with those and then allow that detail to come out in the annual action plans.
Okay. All right, any questions for Brooklyn before I turn it over to any members of the audience? Anybody from the audience wish to address the council on this public hearing item regarding our consolidated plan and our update? Seeing no takers.
And I'll just share, I did get an email from Wenatchee Dispute Resolution Center asking to be included in the plan as a partner for implementation and related to public services. So it's a pretty long email, so I won't read it, but I'll be including that in the public comment area of the consolidated plan.
Perfect. All right, seeing no members of the public wish to address the council, I'll turn it over to the council for any action they may be willing to take. Which looks like to adopt a resolution 2021-15 is what it looks like. Oops. Spelling something, Ruth.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion
for the city council to, 1, conduct a public hearing, 2, the city council adopt resolution 2021-15 to approve the 2020 through 2024 CDBG Consolidated Plan, Assessment of Fair Housing, and the 2020 CDBG Annual Action Plan, and authorize the mayor to sign applicable applications, certifications, assurances, and agreements.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Esparza, second by Councilmember Harold, to adopt Resolution 2021-15 to approve the 2020 through 2024 CDBG Consolidated Plan, Assessment of Fair Housing, and the 2020 CDBG Annual Action Plan, and authorize the mayor to sign applicable applications, certifications, assurances, and agreements, and any other words that start with the letter A. I threw that last part in. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brooklyn. All right, in light of the fact that we're supposed to be at the WDA meeting, I really don't have much on the mayor's report. Everything is sort of plugging away as normal. You did see some sales tax numbers today. If you read the report carefully, you'll notice that there is a $90,000 negative adjustment from a 2015 audit, and we don't know what the heck that is. So if you didn't have the minus $90,000 one-time adjustment, we would have been up in the 12 to 15% year over year. Brad's going to be doing some research to figure out why we had a minus 90,000. We sort of know the entity, we sort of know, but it just doesn't right now make common sense to us. So we got to do a little bit of digging. And Brad will talk to his friends at the Department of Revenue and figure out. I mean, that's $9 million of something that was sales taxable in 2015 that magically was determined isn't. And so that's something we got to get our hands around. But Brad's on it, and Amanda, and we'll spend some time sort of working through that and trying to figure out what that is. So without that, we had another very good month. I think that's really all I have. We're not meeting for a couple of weeks. So normally this would be Apple Blossom. It's not currently, so that is still scheduled for sometime in June. And I did meet with Luke Davies at the Health District and talked with Darcy and stuff, so we're still trying to work our way through what all of that might look like. Wish us luck. Good luck. Anything from the council members?
Couple things from the chamber meeting.
Yeah.
As you mentioned a few weeks ago, there is still a pent-up demand for auto sales because they just can't get inventory because of the chip shortage.
Yeah.
They are actually going back to people who bought a car 2 years ago and offering what they paid or more for their vehicle so that they have an inventory to sell.
Yeah.
Where is this
And-
now?
Yeah.
All of the dealers?
A lot of dealers are going out and offering their 2-3-year-old customers more money than what they paid for it. And along with that line, the median price of housing has risen, what, $350 last year to well over $450 this year?
Wow.
Over 450?
Over $450. It's close to $477 right now.
Yep.
So affordable housing is further out of reach.
Yep, it's, we hope that when, again, I don't know what a 3,200 square foot lot in the Philippi subdivision with a 20 by 40 house is going to sell for, but, or whatever the size of a house that you can put on a 3,200 square foot lot, but hopefully those are more affordable than what our median price is now. That's the only hope, but we got to get lumber down to a price that's reasonable and.
Their value for those lots on the website shows them at about $150.
Yeah.
And we need to get our wage structure up.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, Mark, yeah.
We depress wages in this community.
Yep. All right, anything else for the good of the order?
There was a low barrier shelter meeting this week, and starting the process, the county commissioners had a lot of questions about what their role is in this, and we couldn't answer that question until the councils, the two councils form their interlocal agreement and we get our plans in place. So, but we have encouraged them to stay involved in it for their input.
Excellent.
Pay to play, I think is their role is thinking
Step up
of.
and join.
All right, everybody, we're adjourned.
Thank you.